everyone, thank you for being here. This is Teresa's Crafty Cabana. So today we're going to be doing some prints using Distress Oxide inks. I picked out some of my favorite colors to blend together, and these stencils that I'm using, it's kind of like a 2-in-1 from a Colorful Life design. It's a cloud stencil, so you get the inside and then the outside as well. So I'm going to just be using the inside, and then I've got this as a texture for my Baby Bell cheese. I just really like this packaging, and I thought this would be a really neat design on maybe some of my prints. So I'm just kind of cutting it apart. It has these little metal pieces on the both ends, so I'm just using my scissors to cut that. And then when you stretch it out, it's like a tube, so I cut that in half on just one side so that I had kind of a long rectangle piece. And this is neat because you can pull it and stretch it, so you can lay it on skinny or wider, so you can kind of change what that one looks like. All right, so I'm just kind of experimenting here. I haven't really used Distress inks with my blending tool on a Gelli Plate. I mostly have been doing brayering onto my Gelli Plate. So I wanted to see if I can get some stencil designs using my Distress Oxide inks. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm starting with Antique Linen, which is kind of a very nice cream color. And then I'm just going to work my way down the colors, almost like a rainbow color as I go down. And I'm kind of going for sky colors because I've got clouds. So maybe like sunset sky. And it's just basically almost like if you'd watched my cloud envelope video. I'll link that one below. But it's similar to what I was doing with my Perfect Pearls, as I was just changing colors of Perfect Pearls as I went. But for the Distress inks, I think I'm going to get a different look. I'm wanting to have these layers, but I also want to see how much I can do with my Distress inks that I've normally now been doing with my paints. Some things you can't replicate with Distress inks and on the Gelli Plate, and other things you can. Typically, I will see people using water a lot with the Distress inks on the gel plates. So this is just kind of a different way of using them. I'm not using water in any of these. And you can see here, as I go down, I just kind of turn my little cloud stencil, and then I get like a different looking cloud, and that kind of layers with the cloud before it. So it's pretty neat how you can just get some interesting looking cloud shapes. And you can see I'm not going all the way up to the previous color. I'm going up about maybe 3/4 of the way, and then I'm leaving some white space. I'm going to be pulling with a piece of copy paper, just my 24-pound bright white copy paper, so it will show white. And then at the very bottom or top of my gel plate, I'm just using black to kind of bring in from the top. And with Distress Oxide inks, they stay wet on the plate for quite a while, not like forever, but I find that they have a pretty long working time, and you don't have to wait for it to dry. You just have to get it to adhere to the paper, and then it's there. So you can pull it up pretty quickly. The Antique Linen, you can't really even see it on camera, but that one was very light and difficult to see. I am going to pull a ghost print just to see how bright the colors are pulling it a second time. The purple transfers over pretty nicely. The blue also, the yellows and the oranges get a little bit lost. I'm going to just clean my Gelli Plate here. To do that, I'm just putting down some white paint, and then just putting my piece of copy paper down. I used my Baby Bell cheese thing over on my little gel plate. All right, so I was having a really hard time getting this paper off of my gel plate. It felt like it was glued on, but that's okay. This is what came up. Again, that's putting white paint behind it. I'm just going to use that as kind of like my messy sheet, brayer off sheet or whatever. So I'm not too worried about that one. I'm going in with the colors that I had chosen now, and I'm just kind of putting them like along the gel plate. So I started with the Uncharted Mariner, and then the Seedless Preserves, the Rusty Hinge, the Spiced Marmalade, and then the Fossilized Amber. Now, because it's so long, I used one brayer to go over 3 colors, and then I have a second brayer here that I used to go over the last 2 colors. I didn't want to like blend my oranges with my blues. Same thing, I'm just putting my piece of paper down. I actually used a print that I had just pulled. You can see the clouds in the background. I had pulled from the lighter print. So I'm just going in with another layer of some of my ink. Now I have a stencil from PM Artist Studio, and I'm going to go right over one of my previous prints that I had just pulled. I'm pressing in between the stencil here, so just kind of pressing in real good. So you can see this one is nice and bright. This is the one that I layered color on top of the light cloud print, and now I have an additional layer on there, so I think that looks pretty neat. This is the other cloud print that I had pulled, and I'm going to pull the rest of the words that are left on the plate. And remember, the Distress inks, they stay wet for quite a while, so I can keep working. And I think that looks really neat as well. So I'm going to go in with more of my cloud design. This time I'm starting at the top, but I am using my Perfect Pearls. This is just in a pink color, and I'm just going on the top part, like almost like the edge of the clouds, and pulling some of that pearl powder just to kind of line the clouds. I wanted it to have kind of like a glowy, almost like a golden glow, but it's pink, and to kind of show what the sun would look like if it was like setting through the clouds. So I thought that this might be a nice touch. I'm not sure again if this is going to work well with Distress Oxide inks. The inks, they don't tend to pull up layers. So if you like did acrylic paint on the gel plate and then tried to pull that up with Distress inks, it's a dye pigment ink. It's not going to pull up layers. It will probably pull up layers of itself. So if I did several layers of Distress ink on top of each other, yes, and it would probably mess up the layer underneath. So it is just a different medium, and it just has its own kind of learning curves. But I quite enjoy playing around and seeing what I can get away with and what doesn't work. So here I'm just finishing up the edges of the clouds with the Perfect Pearls. And I'll go in, and right on top, I'm just going to put my colors all down again in the same order. And then I'll pull this print and see what we get. You can kind of see the clouds if I tilt it, but it didn't really pull up the Perfect Pearls, which again is because the Distress inks don't really pull up different mediums. So to kind of fix that, I'm going in with my matte Mod Podge, and I'm just gonna do the same thing, brayer in using my 2 different brayers for the different colors, and layering that right on top of that print I just pulled. And you can see it comes up nice and clean, and it pulled up all of the perfect pearls, and so it's nice and vibrant. This one's very bright and colorful. So I'm just repeating the same steps here where I just put down the ink and brayer it out. And now I'm using a different stencil from PM Artist Studio. This one is, the design is from Becky and it's the ampersand. Been loving this one lately. And then I will line that up with my print that I had already pulled, the nice vibrant print. And this just adds kind of like a tone-on-tone additional layer of the design. And then once I remove that, I can use the leftover ink on the plate and pull that on another print. So I did learn that it comes out completely different if you go opposite ways. So if I first do the yellow on the top and the blue on the bottom, and then I switch it or flip it and do the yellow on the bottom and the blue on the top, it looks totally different than if I keep the same colors in the same order for the different layers. So again, I'm just experimenting here. This is just me kind of having fun on the Gelli Plate, and in the spirit of trying to see what else I can experiment with. Since the perfect pearls didn't come up when I put the pearls down first and then the ink on top, I thought I'd try putting the pearls on the stencil and pulling it onto the plate with the Distress inks. So I was just trying to see if I kind of blended into the ink, if it would pull up or if it still won't. Plus I'm gonna start putting some of the colors, mixing the colors a little bit in each layer. I didn't do it in the blue layer, but in this one I'm doing the seedless preserves, and then kind of like in the lower areas, I'm putting in the crackling campfire to start blending that color together. I wanted to use the colors that had the blue and the purple, so I had to clean my stencil because I'm going in with orange and I didn't want to have muddy colors. All right, so now that I've got all the ink down, I'm going to pull this print, and again, I'm trying to see in this one if the pearl powder pulls up. And it did not. So again, I'm just learning that the pearl powders, I can't really get those to pull up with my Distress inks. There wasn't that much pearl powder left on the plate in the first place, so I didn't bother using the matte medium this time. I'm just gonna keep building up on top of my plate, keeping the colors kind of in the same order that they've been, and just seeing how my layers are gonna look once I get these colors blended out. So this print is just kind of removing the extra color. Then I can remove the stencil and pull this design on this print. Just lining it up the same using my DIY placement tool. And then this is, again, some more of the tone on tone, so you get the design of the stencil and then those clouds in the background still. So moving on, I'm just going to keep going in with these colors and keep reapplying them as needed for my layers here. So for this next one, I'm going in with a different stencil from PM Artist Studio called Suspicious Sprouts by Rhonda Griffin Shale. And this I'm doing right on top of the print that I had pulled here. And so here I went in with the blue opposite of where the blue was the first time around. And so it looked like the ombre was kind of meeting in the middle. So I wanted to do one more layer with this to kind of make the colors a little more intense. And there you go. So just trying to fill in those white spaces. And that's nice and colorful now. I am going in with my black Distress Oxide. It's the black soot. And I'm just brayering that across the entire gel plate. And I want to get some kind of like shadows or a little more drama into my prints. They're looking a little bit like they need something fun to add to them to make them pop. So I'm going to see how this looks with the black. I think this looks so cool, and that shadow on there looks really neat as well. I'm taking what's left on the gel plate and putting that over another one of my prints. This was a very vibrant print, so this kind of the black will tone down those colors a little bit. Next, I'm going back in with my black soot, and then I'll just brayer that out nice and even. Going back in, now this time I had the colorful ampersand design and I wanted the shadow, so I put the stencil on top of my print so I knew it was facing the right way, and flipped it and then pressed that into my gel plate so that I could get kind of like an offset shadow for this one. And there it is. You can see the little bit of the shadow off of the black area. So that's looking really neat. And this is just a brayer off that I had used when I was doing the matte Mod Podge. And so that's just what was left on this piece of paper. So I thought I might as well just layer up some of my distress inks on top of this little print. It needed a little something extra, so I did go back in with my distress inks and kind of redid my ombre here. And I'll just put this right on top just so I can pull some colors onto those gray areas. And there's some nice color added to this. Okay, so now I'm going to use this one and do the same thing where I line the stencil up with what I'd already done. And the helpful part of this is it's easy to put this stencil down the wrong way if you don't know exactly what way you had it the first time around. So that's why I'm doing it this way as well. And then I can see the shadow, the amount of shadow I'm going to get. And this is nice and vibrant. This is the one that I had done with the matte Mod Podge on top of the Distress inks. So this is definitely a little bit more vibrant than the other ones. I don't know if the Mod Podge just makes it stand out a little bit more, but I felt like that one was really nice and vibrant. So on this one, I didn't measure out where the ampersand was going to line up, and you can see this one was way off, maybe like a huge shadow. So I didn't love that one after I did that final layer on there. So sometimes you can overdo it with your layers. Here are the prints that we made today. So I do love these bright colors, and believe it or not, these colors kind of remind me of some maybe Halloween or fall backgrounds. So I might be using some of these to make just some starter Halloween. I could totally see this one with like some spider webs, especially this one with these bright colors, almost like a haunted house in front of this or something. So definitely thinking I'll use these to try to get started on my Halloween crafting, whether it be tags or cards, but I think I want to do tags because I like that I can create a little book that I can look through and kind of create it for this year. So I don't know if I'll use all of these for that, but I can definitely see myself using some of this color pattern here for a starter for a mixed media Halloween thing. So anyway, these are the prints that came out, I think, very vibrant on some, but so soft on like this one here. So it is nice that you can have a variation just by how many layers you put down. And I really feel like using that matte Mod Podge, it really just like brightened those colors up significantly. Well, thank you for watching along with me, and I hope this inspires you to maybe pull out your distress inks on your gel plate. And let me know in the comments what was your favorite print that I made today. I will see you in the next video. Thanks and happy crafting.